So March 3rd, I'm guessing this is a day that will probably stick in your memory for a while.
Yeah, not really,
What
but
was it like being called out on Fox Business News?
well, that's an interesting day because yeah, I've been on national news before, and if you're an effective legislator on the Republican side and you're conservative, you're going to get called out. That's just, this is part of the business. It's a blood sport. You're going to get some group against you at one point or another, some political party against you to smear you because of what you're doing on the conservative side. It's happening across the country. What was interesting here is this is supposed to be a conservative company, I guess, and they smeared me on Fox News, Stuart Varney, and I saw it first thing in the morning. My phone started blowing up, and I really didn't appreciate it. So I let it be. My team started working on a statement to see if I can get back on the show the following day. But then I went down to the Capitol. That was 7:30 in the morning. I went to the Capitol, and as I was walking around at noon in the front lobby, I get blindsided by the CEO, Rick Smith, who verbally assaults me and accosted me on my opposition to this policy, which is wrong in general of attacking a legislator in the building of the Capitol, of all places, too. But he made threats to me, told me he's going to end my political career, and then he started attacking my core business of what I do outside the legislature. I just had a problem with that, and I stood my ground and talked to him about it. I'm not a confrontational person, but I'm going to defend myself and talk factual points with him, and that's what I did. And so that discussion went on for about 20 minutes. At one point, I had to call security because he was getting a little overly aggressive with me, standing in my space and really making these threats he shouldn't have been doing to a state legislator, all because I oppose a policy and is going to vote no. So I think that's wrong. After that, it's lingering on for 2 more weeks as they're trying to jam this bill through just to help one company. And I think it's absolutely the wrong thing we should be doing as legislators.
So when you saw this live, what was the first thing that went through your mind?
You know, Cool. I'm on Fox Business. That's pretty neat to see Stuart Varney. You know, I did not go on the next day, but he did post my statement with my photo and read it. It was, it was the right thing for him to do, getting both sides of the story. And I think Stuart Varney's a good person. I think he sees both sides when he understands it more. But again, I think he was allowing one side of the story. So I appreciate what Fox Business and Stuart Varney did to allow a second side to the story, which I thought was very well written and clearly stated of what the real, facts are. So,
How did your conversation end with Rick Smith on March 3rd?
it's about 7 or 8 minutes into it, maybe 10 minutes into it, after I called for security and reminded him that I'm a state legislator and a public official that was elected, that you're threatening me on my vote, that's illegal. Um, he backed away and apologized and wanted to reset the meeting. And I'll give him that. He wanted to start over, but just because you want to start over doesn't mean none of that already occurred. And so, I said, look, we'll continue to work. I think it's a city, what I shared already, it's a city issue, and you should be going back to the city, not down here at the Capitol. And again, I'm not a confrontational person. I like to try to resolve that confrontation, which I was doing pretty well at for 20 minutes, just again, having a real conversation with them. It ended with us, kind of at a standstill. I'm going to keep opposing these bills. And he said he's going to keep trying to jam them through because if he doesn't get these bills through, he's going to relocate to Florida because Arizona doesn't want him, which I honestly don't believe. I think other cities would be more than happy to take him. And Scottsdale wants Axon here in their city as long as they're cooperative in working with us on something that they want to build. And keep in mind, Jen, they bought this land trust 5 years ago. They've done nothing in 5 years to build their campus. That was already approved with this light industrial land use. They didn't build, they changed their plans. They jammed through a lame duck session of city council that all got voted out on their election. All the incumbents, including the mayor, lost their reelection here in Scottsdale because they overapproved too many apartments. It's a hot issue here in Scottsdale. And so they got them to do their last session, lame duck, changed the land use to multifamily, and it backfired. And so now they're coming to the state. I think it's wrong. And so that's where I left it. And that's how we're still fighting against this bad policy. I'm hoping that there's some other alternative routes that they may choose to work with the city and work with the new mayor and the new incoming council to figure out a solution. But I'll tell you, changing the state constitution for one company to profit and changing it for every other city going forward is the wrong thing to do.
So I communicated with Warren Peterson earlier today, and I asked him about Senate Bill 1352.
That's the bill.
Yes, and he told me he doesn't know that it's going to really move any further. He said that basically nothing's really happening. He doesn't think that there are the votes for it. What do
Well,
you think?
there's another bill in the House that they dropped a mirror bill on, which is exactly the same bill, but it moves into both chambers at the same time.
Mhm.
That's 2925, HB 2925. What you need to know about the inner workings of the Capitol is, yeah, as I was reminded by the speaker, that bill's dead, meaning that bill number. There's ways that you take another bill and you put all that language on another bill, and it has a totally different number. It's called a striker, strike all.
Mhm.
So you take another bill, you take all the language off of it, and you apply this language on there,
And this would
or a
be,
variation of that language. And then that new bill number starts moving.
yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of a shady maneuver down at the Capitol. It happens every year, sometimes good, sometimes bad. I mean, again, there's things that are on both sides of the coin, just like this zoning change. I mean, if they change this zoning, it's bad for everybody because in this situation, right, we're opposing a development on land use that we don't want in Scottsdale. But it could be just the opposite. There could be companies out there that want to build something really good that the citizens want, and the city council is blocking them. The citizens will not be able to do a signature petition, put it to a vote on the ballot for all their residents to approve something that they want too. So it does work both ways. Just like a striker sometimes is good, sometimes it's bad. In this case, I think it's bad.
Is the striker Senator Carroll's SB 1542?
Yes, it is. And it's going to be heard Wednesday, 8:30 a.m. at the Capitol. And what's interesting too about that, Jen, is that committee only had one bill all session so far. They've only had one hearing with one bill. So this will be their second bill they've heard. I question that. And it usually starts at 9 o'clock, our committee meetings. It's being moved to 8:30 for some reason. Now, usually you move earlier if you have a busy schedule to get finished by 1 o'clock when we need to go on the floor. Why it's being moved a half hour earlier during rush hour and morning traffic of everybody's lives, of what they have to do with their families, instead of being moved back to like 10 o'clock because it's only one bill. And 3 hours should be sufficient on one bill to complete it before the floor session starts. So I find that odd that they're changing the time from 9 to 8:30, moving it up on the citizens of Arizona to pressure them a little more to get down there with the rush hour traffic and everything else that goes on in their morning lives.
Okay, a lot to unpack here.
No.
One of the things, so I have been following several pieces of legislation this year. And the one thing that I notice is it's not really Democrat, Republican. I am noticing conservative, conservative. Why is there such a divide in the Republican Party, and especially on this issue?
Great question. I don't know. I mean, a common sense answer would be leadership. I mean, it's top-down organization a lot of times where your leadership sets the tone and understands how a business is going to operate in the business world. And I think it's the same at the Capitol. I mean, your leadership is in charge of everything in administrating what we do on a daily basis. So why are we being divisive with bills on the Republican side? We shouldn't be doing that 100%. I mean, occasionally you have one or two that just surface, and there'll be maybe a handful of folks, two or three, that are against the bill. And again, we're 30 districts. We report the 30 different sets of voters, right? So what's good for one district may not be good for another district. So that is pretty common down there. You know, the rural guys want something out of their districts, and city guys don't. right? So there's some changes there, but most of the time you end up voting for it because if it's good for the state, you do it, right? With what you're explaining, these are controversial bills dividing our caucus where, we're seeing some bills that go up on the board and they're getting 12 to 15 Republicans. I, I mean, I've been there 5 years. This is what we're trying to stop doing each year. This is not good when you're divided within your own caucus on bills. And I think a lot of it's tied to we're not communicating. We're not talking as a caucus in a group about the real issues that are going on in the session. And there'll always be issues. Let's be clear. There's always issues every day down at the Capitol. How you address them, how you communicate them, and how you cooperate with your group to find a resolution, right? I learned this years ago. You got a problem, whether it's a divisive bill or personalities. You spend 15% on that problem and you spend 85% of the time on the solution.
Yeah.
And that's how you resolve problems quickly and you move on. But we're not doing any of that. And it's unfortunate. And it's interesting you noticed that we're doing more of that this year. It's not good.
You bring up a really good point that I want to get back to, and that is what might be good for one district may not be good for another district.
Right.
So when we first moved out here to Goodyear, we were sold. We were sold that Estrella is going to be the next Scottsdale, and we're going to have shopping, and we're going to have these beautiful homes. I mean, that was the selling point of coming out here to Estrella Mountain Ranch. So in our minds, Scottsdale is this beautiful area, right? Everybody wants to be Scottsdale. Fast forward 20 years, we are less than 20% built out right now. Goodyear
Wow.
is apartments and warehouses and restaurants. It absolutely breaks my heart. But an issue like this, what you're dealing with in Scottsdale, if now that you've got the state taking away the people's right to make these zoning decisions, it would quash us here in the West Valley. Do you think that these folks understand like the larger ramifications?
I don't think so. I don't think I think they see it as a Scottsdale problem and they're not in Scottsdale, so they could care less, maybe some of them. I've heard those comments a few times. Like, I don't really care about, your neighborhood, but because it's not in their backyard, but it's going to be in everybody's backyard if they change this. So, perfect example. And let's just call it what it is. Rogue city councils will take payoffs from corrupt developers to jam through a zoning change that they can build, and the citizens will have no say. That's the reality here. That's what this bill will do. And again, it all tacks back to one company trying to get out from underneath the rock. I mean, let's be honest, Jen, they changed the zoning to multifamily. Nobody else. They got city council to do that. Can I tell you that multifamily land in Scottsdale is not worth that much because we've overbuilt apartments, and the sentiment of the voters, like 90% of the voters do not want any more large projects built in Scottsdale. You mentioned the uniqueness of it. You can go anywhere in this country and say you're from Scottsdale. You don't have to say Arizona. They know Scottsdale. And so we're trying to keep that uniqueness as a family-oriented city, right? We want more homes, not more apartments. It's already too dense in a lot of areas. Plus the traffic's getting worse, the water problems, just the congestion of everything that goes on with more apartments and the high density. And we've already built a lot of them, which is why everybody in city council lost their position in the reelection. But when you look at what's going on here, and you look at just the multifamily land that they're sitting on now because they changed the zoning, it's worthless. I mean, I'm a business guy. Which developer is going to buy multifamily land from them if they want to sell it off to build 1,500 to 2,000 apartments on that land, because that's how large it is, when the city's always going to object to it? So they're trying to change the policy for two reasons. One, to get out from underneath this financial rock they've made themselves by changing the zoning, because they can't sell the land. I mean, let's just talk facts here as business. If they change the policy at the state level and they want to sell the land, well, the next developer now can build whatever he wants with apartments. The citizens will not have a say if city council approves it. That's bad. Second, they can change their plan now if they do decide to continue building a headquarters with apartments in it. Again, nobody objects to anything else they want to build. If they build those apartments because they changed the plan and now it goes back to the city and the residents can't do a signature petition again because the policy got changed at the state level if these bills go through. But now we can't have a voice to oppose it. They'll build these apartments. And now let's look forward, because as a legislator, we have to look at the deeper part of policy, right? How does this affect the state? Not just today, 10, 20 years from now, 30 years from now. Let's say Axon builds this 2,000 apartment complex that the city doesn't want somehow. And they expand even greater because their business is booming. They're going to go relocate to a larger place. It's just natural. And they're going to sell off their assets, their buildings, and this apartment complex. And Scottsdale stuck with not a campus housing of their employees, but a regular apartment complex they never wanted. Now, let's say the opposite. Let's say their plan to have all their employees live on campus and work there and live there and basically make it a compound for them with no cars. And that's what they're claiming. Well, let's say they can't fill it up. Now they can sell it off as an asset. We're stuck with a 2,000 unit apartment complex. Let's say they implode with all their government contracts and they don't have the sales anymore. And that now they have to start selling off assets. That's the first thing that's going to sell. Let me tell you that the value on this thing is probably, again, without seeing, the plans, because the plans can change and they're not set. You're looking at high-end Class A apartments. In Scottsdale, those sell for about $400,000 a unit. This is an $800 million apartment project. That profit is probably around $400 to $500 million. Are we connecting dots here? Yeah. So they can end up still leaving town, making a $400 to $500 million profit by selling this project off after they build it to an apartment developer, an apartment owner. I mean, this is massive. So there's no guarantee that they're sticking around. And we're sure as hell not the reason why they're leaving. You could build anything you want other than the apartments. And if you really are gun set on building a compound, a campus that you want, like Google and Apple, where everybody lives and works in the same, area and doesn't have cars, and I don't know what kind of life that would be. I sure as hell wouldn't want to do that if I was 28 years old again, making 300 grand, like they say. I'd rather live in a house in Scottsdale if I'm living in Scottsdale, but that's just me. But let's just say they want to go 2 exits down on the freeway and buy some state trust land in Phoenix. I'm sure Phoenix will allow them to build what they want and build the apartment complex, whatever else they want to do. So I'm not sure why they wouldn't just go 2 blocks down into Phoenix and build whatever they want.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Why
Yeah,
Scottsdale?
yeah. It doesn't make any sense. There's really no sense here. I have some theories. I won't share them with you. But I just laid out the financial play on this. So you got to start questioning some of this stuff deeper. And I don't know if Scottsdale wants to have 2,000 apartments in 5 years or 10 years down the road if it gets built and they leave town anyway.
One of the hot topics anymore are these 15-minute cities. Is this looking to kind of fit into that, or is that just a totally different topic?
If it walks like a duck, it is a duck, right? I mean, it kind of looks like that. I mean, when you put shopping, restaurants, living, and work all together with no cars, and you advertise that we're not going to have cars for congestion on the streets that everybody's worried about, it kind of feels like that. And here's another good question. Like I've talked to a lot of people on this. There's some people who are like, oh, this would be great. We need affordable housing. Well, affordable housing, their employees are living there. How are you going to live there? Second, if it's not employee housing, like I've outlined, these rents are going to be $4,000 or $5,000 a month, at least 3,000. I mean, these are high-end units. So
Yeah,
that's not affordable housing. And someone else commented about, oh, it'd be great to have all these apartments and then these restaurants all around them. Well, we already have Scottsdale Quarter and we already have Curlin, which is like that, right? Shopping, condos above. Nobody has said what the restaurants look like, which restaurants and where the restaurants are going to be located. What if the restaurants are located like a college campus inside buildings that you have to have a card key to get into? How is the public getting into these if they're for their 2,000 employees?
Yeah.
So I don't know exactly what that plan is or what the public is going to have to offer to go there and dine. And if they're talking about not having cars for their residents, well, I don't know if there's going to be a lot of parking spaces all around this community where the restaurants are. So it doesn't sound like it's open to the public. And even if it is, they don't have a ton of parking.
Is there a place for Axon in Scottsdale outside of this deal?
Well, yeah, they're right where they are. Just don't build the apartments. The original plan did not include apartments. Nobody complained. Listen, if you lived in Scottsdale for 10 years, right? I've been here 15. If you've paid any attention to if you vote, let's just say you vote in Scottsdale, all right? That means you're paying a little bit of attention to what goes on in the city, in the capital. You would know that nobody wants more apartments in Scottsdale. The pulse of the city is we've overbuilt. People have lost their elections over it. They believe that they're getting too developed in the desert here, and they're taking away the uniqueness of Scottsdale. So that is very easy to see. How a headquartered company that's been here for 10, 15, 20 years has no pulse on the community, that the apartments are an eyesore, nobody wants them. It's shocking to me that their team and their executives have no understanding of the city they're in as a headquarters. And furthermore, if they're just going to strong arm the state policy through legislators to vote for something and turn their back on all the Scottsdale voters, why would the Scottsdale residents want a headquartered company there that has no interest in working within the community of the residents? That's not a great company to be partnered with in your community that doesn't care about your vote or your voice or what you want inside your family community. So it just shocks me that they're this bold, trying to force changes of policy so they can financially gain. Let's just say what it is. That's what it is.
What do you foresee in the next couple of weeks with all this? If you had a
Uh,
crystal ball, what's going to happen?
I think Wednesday is going to be a big day. I don't, my guess is it passes committee because it's stacked that way. I mean, they don't put a divisive bill in a committee that's going to fail, right? The leadership that is administrating the bills and the flow of the bills and the way that they're doing this, there's not even the language on this bill yet. I mean, it's just in the committee. The striker will be added probably soon before Wednesday, but it's kind of uncommon that the striker's not added right now. So it's, I question that as well. I don't think that's a lot of integrity of what we're doing down there, especially for the citizens, right? We're supposed to be transparent for the voters and the citizens, and we're not. I mean, nobody knows that there's a striker going to be added on this unless you've been paying attention. So we're not publicly putting up what we're doing in the committee. I think it's going to pass committee if it gets to that point. I don't believe this will pass on the floor. And if it goes onto the floor, we got a committee of the whole that we're going to do what we can to amend it, to make it a better policy, right, for the citizens, not just for Scottsdale. I mean, again, this affects every community in the state. So we're going to try to amend it and fix it because I don't think we should be changing Article 4 of our Arizona Constitution to have one company profit while every citizen in the state loses in their communities going forward. It's wrong.
Anything else on this issue? Because I do have a couple of other
Yeah,
questions.
no, I think we covered a lot. Thanks for asking about it. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the talk of the town right now. It's in every publication. It's in every discussion at the Capitol. I mean, Axon's been walking around the Capitol for 2 weeks every day talking to legislators. Um, Personally, I don't think they should have after they made a threat and assaulted somebody. I don't care if it's me or anybody else. That should have been handled directly with the CEO and the speaker, and they should have sat down and had a formal apology, not just to myself, but to the body of the House of Representations. The House of Representatives is an institution. There's personnel that work there that are not elected officials. It's the integrity of that body that we need to uphold because that building was here. The Capitol has been here since 1912. It'll be here long after us. And the decorum and the conduct of guests in that building need to be upheld. Um, we should not allow anybody go in there and threaten anybody, even an employee of the House of Representatives. There was a staff worker there that got threatened. We should be talking to that person directly and saying, you do not have access to this building anymore until there's a public statement, not only to that person directly, but to the whole body of the House of Representatives. That's how good leadership runs a place in any
Um,
organization. Yeah,
yeah, definitely. So I want to be transparent for the
sure.
people who are listening to this portion of the podcast. I have reached out to Axon. I've reached out to Rick Smith and Josh Isner. I have not received a response yet, but both of them are welcome anytime to come on and discuss this as well.
As
So
you should. Yeah, absolutely. There's always two sides. But again, I don't believe this is a state issue. This is an issue between Axon and the city. I wasn't involved in anything until it came to the state. And that March 3rd date, as you said, is when I got thrown into it deeply. And
I
I've,
just can't imagine. I
it's
what
not the first time I've had threats. I've had a couple of death threats already in the 5 years. So this is although those are hard to find when they come across the internet or people make claims on the phone or something. But this was in person, on camera, in the Capitol, in the lobby, right in front of the security desk and 100 other people for 20 minutes. I mean, I just think that's uncalled for.